Continuing now with questions for Republican candidate for governor, Rick Snyder. He billed himself one tough nerd at the Super Bowl, and that really has given him status as one of the front runners for the nomination. Its primary is just over a month away, and we're getting questions from Kim LaForette, Coldwell Banker, Hubble Briarwood, Cheryl Freeborough Automotive, Bob Hedlund from Hedlund Plumbing, and Peggy and Gary Doty from Doty Mechanical. There are others here, too, including Jim Trebilcock, Scott Danick, George Volman, Todd Pride, Scott Farragon, and Kerry Culligan in the coffee house next door. If you have questions, be sure to make your way up. This is your chance to get your questions answered. People say sometimes that politicians, elected officials, are not accessible. You'll never have one more accessible than right now, and he wants to be governor. Who's next?
Hey, this is Bob Hedlund from Hedlund Plumbing. I have a quick question for you on the national image of Michigan. I mean, I've born and raised here all my life. I love Michigan. Anytime you hear talk shows, the national shows, or talk to people that are outside the area, they mention Michigan. The first thing they mention is, "Oh, you're from Detroit." What is your vision? How can you? What ideas do you have on a national level, getting away from? I mean, there's a lot of good things to see in Southeast Michigan, but what's overall statewide, what's your vision for getting it across nationally to increase and improve our image?
Yeah, we do need to improve our image. And if you have a chance to go to our website, rickformichigan.com, we actually have a paper on that about improving our image and our approach. One of the first things we need to do, though, is before I turn outside and look at the rest of the country, is we need to be more positive ourselves. In many respects, part of the issue we have is we're getting bad coverage because we're not representing ourselves as positively as we could have. And we need to work on that. And that's one of the issues I tell people is we need to highlight some of the great things, even in Detroit. And one Detroit thing that we don't talk about enough is I'm very proud there's a group called Declare Detroit, or Detroit Declaration. And it's young professionals. And if you go, they have a Facebook fan page of over 10,000 fans. And these are young professionals committed to building their lives, to working and living in the city of Detroit. It's a fabulous story. We need to do more than just talk about it, though. We need to support that kind of success. To go to your general question about Michigan, though, we've got great things we need to talk about. Last year was a wonderful illustration of something that we needed to highlight even more, and it was in the Grand Rapids area that I love talking about. Art Prize. If you talk about a huge success, and one of the things we talk about in our platform is the need to continue to support arts and culture, to get more support back in. Because quite often people say we don't need to do that. But what did Art Prize do for Grand Rapids? It not only was a cultural boom, it was an economic boom. I don't know if you happened to be there, but on those days, people walking the streets, the restaurants were full, literally places ran out of food because of the activity level. So that's the kind of creativity we need to highlight where there's an opportunity somewhere in our state to celebrate a success like that. I mean, we got the Cherry Festival coming out. We got so many wonderful things.
Right.
We need to be talking about these things with a smile and some fire.
Yeah.
That's so true. Kim LaForette with Coldwell Banker, Hubble Briarwood. There is whenever you hear about the real estate market nationally, Michigan is always in the top 2 of the worst place to be real estate-wise. And it's so frustrating to me, as being a realtor here in Lansing for so many years, that people still need a roof over their heads. Yeah. And so there are still homes that are selling. Unfortunately, foreclosures, the total number of sales in the state of Michigan in the past year have been 37%. That's more than 1 in 3 homes have been in foreclosure in the past year. Now there's talk of a sales tax on services. This would include sales tax on real estate sales. What's your stance on that?
We shouldn't be talking about doing a sales tax on services right now. I mean, people are suffering. We don't need more burden. We don't need more complexity right now. We need to get our economy back on track. The concept of broadening the sales tax is a reasonable one to have on the table in the longer term when we look at overall tax reform, but that's some time out. In terms of tax reform in our state, what we need to be looking at right now is eliminating the Michigan business tax. That's something that if you talk about national image or image anywhere else, if you're in the state, it's a job killer. Mm-hmm. The only way I describe it, I'm an old tax person, and I used to work on the single business tax years ago. In 2007, the single business tax lost the title as the worst tax in the United States, and it lost it to the Michigan business tax. And the only way I describe that act to a non-tax person, it's as if Lansing went to the video store and rented Dumb and Dumber. It is fundamentally unfair. It simply needs to be eliminated, and I propose replacing it with a flat 6% corporate income tax. Take Michigan sales, all Michigan sales, federal taxable income times 6%, get a number, write a check, go run your business. Simple, fair, and efficient.
Simple.
Won't that put accountants out of business?
No, believe me, the IRS is doing a good job of keeping the
still the
federal
federal
tax
side.
code complicated. I've actually had tax accountants come up to me and say, don't worry about that. We got plenty of business.
Okay, that's good to know.
If I can ask you, though, do you bounce an idea like that off somebody who's in the legislative process? Because it sounds great, but once you get it up there where the sausage is being made, how can you do a radical change?
Yeah, Michael Patrick, we actually, for all the information, all our white papers, all those programs we're talking about, is we went through a pretty good process of asking experts to give us feedback and their commentary. So we vetted those papers by a fairly good cross-section of experts in various fields. The one I was most proud of is in healthcare. We probably had almost 30 different experts vetting our paper on healthcare, which was why the federal mess was going on. We were focused on some specific state issues. So we do that in all our work.
Rick, George Volman of Volman Ford in Portland. Here's my question. And ultimately, as a small business, I sometimes wake up in the morning, go into my business, and I think I'm working for the state in terms of being able to pay taxes to them and also the federal government. So the appeal of the Michigan business tax is absolutely on our mind. But the thing that is really killing us right now is unemployment insurance tax. And the challenge that we have, just so you know, I have job openings at the store. I can't get people to take them. I said, well, I don't want to use my unemployment up. So how do we address that issue, and how would you address that as the governor?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question, and
That's
I
why
don't
I
believe
asked
there's
it.
no, because part of the issue is there's not a great answer to it without a lot of extra work in terms of looking at, because the way it works is the federal income tax, the federal unemployment tax, is something that we pay back, and because we've had higher unemployment, it's putting us at a competitive disadvantage versus other states. And unfortunately, as we continue to have unemployment issues, that just continues increasing. So one of the key things we need to do is just get our economy going again. I mean, to get that going, and then over time, I think it's a fair discussion to go to the federal government to say, we just happen to be in this jurisdiction, so why is it that we're bearing this burden in such a large scale compared to other places that didn't have these issues? And just because you happen to run a good business, you've got an additional tax burden that no one else has.
Well, and we end up spiraling downward
right.
because there's fewer businesses paying the tax, so they throw more taxes on top of it. It just gets to the point where you say, I'm working for the federal government or I'm working for the state government. And that's not why we got into business.
No, and so that's something we need to work at, and that's going to the federal government to help talk about that dialogue. So it's not something just controllable at the state level, but that's something I have on my list, because those are the other taxes that people don't understand. They materially affect your competitiveness, along with worker comp cost, some of these other things that aren't just an income tax.
That's correct.